Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Williams. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Williams. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Williams, your host. Thank you so kindly for being a part of the show. We are going to have a great show for you today. As usual, today we are going to have several conversations that I had in Philadelphia at Netroots Nation 2019. We had a whole ton of activists, and like I said over there, I did over 48 interviews. There were 48 formal interviews that I did. But I also did some on the side, not when I say formal interviews, I mean have people sit down at my table, at my station and had an official interview. But you know what? All throughout that thing, I spoke to a whole lot of people. Shanana, that guy that did. I mean, I even had great conversation with him. He's a devout, activist now. One of those people that we can always count on. So, it was great being out there. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk to a whole lot of those folks. Bear with me as I get some of this stuff queued up here. It seems like some of these issues, Postcron, which is one of the products that we use to do a lot of our queuing, somehow these last few days have been misbehaving on us. So what we're doing is we're trying to get these out. So just bear as we start putting these babies out here. But anyhow, we're going to have a great show. We're going to talk to somebody that is that wrote several books on basic income. I think you're going to find that interesting. Basic income is something that many people are trying to malign. What we're going to do is make sure that is not, give that information to stop that maligning, if you will. We're going to talk to a DNC operative, somebody that I know personally who works for the DNC. We're also going to talk to a very interesting friend of mine out of Texas, out of the middle of Texas. He's going to talk about turning Texas blue. And for those of you who think it's an impossibility, let me tell you, turning Texas blue is definitely on the table. Turning Texas blue is something that we're going to get done, and I think we're going to get done much sooner than many people believe we are going to be able to do it. So we're going to have a good show for you today. One of the things that I want to ask you, as I ask you all of the times, the way we're going to make a difference with this stuff, folks, is that we all have to make sure and get these things shared out. If they're not shared, that is how we make sure to keep this message going. So I want to ask you, if you're just tuning in, if you're just moving on, if you're just coming on live now, please remember, one of the things that we need is for folks to go out and start to share these programs. That is the way we are going to make a difference. And what I'm going to do, I tell you what, I'm going to go ahead and talk about what the program is going to be. Let me bring that up right here. Okay, title of the show today. Turning Texas Blue, Basic Income, DNC Rep Talks Progressive Movement. And the progressive movement is on fire. Today we meet political activists and policy influencers we spoke with at Netroots Nation 2019. It shows a vibrant progressive movement ready for action, folks. Not only ready for action, but ready to move forward. The first person that I want you to listen to is this man who wrote a book. His name is, what is his name? Stephen, I can't remember his name. Stephen something, he'll tell it. We'll introduce him now. He wrote the definitive book on basic income. So what I want you to do is check that out, and we'll move on from there. Here we go. Welcome to Politics Done Right. We're back again, and this morning we have Steven Shafarman. Did I say that correctly?
Shafarman.
And he is with Basic Income Earth, the Basic Income Earth Network. For those of you who don't know, progressives have been pushing this isn't really new, but we've been really trying to get this on the radar. And with good people like Steven here, we are going to do it.
Yes,
Steven,
we certainly are.
welcome aboard Politcs Done Right. Steven, let's start from the beginning. What is basic income?
It's actually a remarkably simple and powerful idea. It says we set some amount, maybe it's $1,000 a month, though it could be 500 or 800 or 1,200, set some amount and provide that to an adult citizen. So it's universal and unconditional.
No matter what, every single citizen gets $1,000
Right.
a month.
And
that is just a start, because I imagine things later on would be indexed to inflation or
yes,
something
of
like
course.
that.
So we'll have to adjust the amount periodically, and local governments or states and cities could supplement it where the cost of living is high.
Okay, so I mean, to a whole lot of people who've been indoctrinated into the belief that somehow there's something magical about money, work, and not understanding the true interrelation, how are we going to ensure that we don't get a whole lot of lazy slough-offs who are just going to sit down and wait for that $1,000 a month?
Well, there's a lot of knee-jerk, biased and prejudiced people who
Right.
say that immediately, and one of the challenges in talking about basic income is to respond effectively. But the simple fact is that nearly everyone will want to work and earn for the joy of work, for the dignity of work, to earn more money, to take vacations and retire in more luxury, or to send their kids to a better school, or for all the countless reasons that people
The
work.
truth of the matter is that the most humans don't just want to sit back and do
No,
nothing.
we don't. We suffer when we sit back and do nothing. And basic income creates an absolute floor so that people can pursue meaningful work instead of being forced to take a job that might be degrading or unsatisfying.
And that what is interesting as well is it would have a tendency to map the value of a job to its pay right now,
Yes.
where it's artificially
Yes.
done. So we're the form of capitalism that we practice now, which claims that it is the efficient allocation of resources.
Yep.
Just maybe this gives for the total
Well,
efficient allocation of resources.
what this does is it puts power back in the hands of ordinary folks,
The people.
of the workers, the people. And yes, some people will work
Slough
for
off.
big,
Yeah.
some people will slough off,
Yes, a
but
few.
the rest of us will be better off even if they do.
Because they are spending into an economy which will
That's
generate
exactly
economic
right.
activity.
And economists in our basic income network have done extensive analyses of this, and there have been pilot programs in the U.S. and other countries.
There was one, I think, in Norway.
And Finland.
And
There was
Finland-
one for
Finland,
2 years.
right.
There's one currently underway in Stockton, California. There's a small one in Mississippi. There are programs in a number of other countries. It was a mainstream idea in the 1960s and early 70s when our government funded pilot projects around the country.
It is something that I think it's overdue. So let's do this. Let's put some people's minds at ease. There are two ways that this, I think, in my opinion, is going to be funded. You and I just spoke about one, and that is by having people on the lower scale have money. All that money would be immediately spent into the economy, which
Yes.
would generate more economic activity, which would generate more taxes.
Yes.
What are other methods of funding?
Well, there are many. And one of the most powerful arguments for this is that we can cut and simplify the tax code.
Right.
And we just saw the Trump and Republican tax cut gave massive amounts of money, most of it to the wealthy and to the
Right.
big corporations. We can eliminate all of that and make the tax code much simpler and fairer because everyone will have the basic income. We can also have a carbon tax. Now, a lot of progressives and even now some Republicans and conservatives have been saying the best approach to progress on climate change and global warming would be a carbon tax and dividend.
Yeah.
And so you collect the tax and then return the money
To the people.
so that people are not harmed. What I'm talking about with basic income is give people the dividend first.
Right.
And once everyone has that baseline of economic security, it will be much easier to have thoughtful conversations about a carbon tax.
You know, that is actually prescient. I mean, I think what we ought to start thinking about is remembering that money is the faith that you have in the country that is issuing that paper.
Exactly.
And as such, if we're creating policies that going forward is going to stabilize the system, that money will not lose value as it is printed as. And you know what? Let me tell you one other thing, and this is important, Steven. I think we've already proved that to some extent modern monetary theory is actually working. When we have quantitative easing and all those types of policies.
It works for the Republicans.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we think that we could have quantitative easing, we could have basic income for the people en masse. And
that's exactly right. And the way I like to approach it is to avoid the theory and the abstractions and just start with the most basic facts. Our government was created to ensure that everyone has unalienable rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In a market-based society, everyone needs at least some income for food, shelter, and other necessities. And so this is a way to make everyone's unalienable rights truly rights and truly to fulfill that vision.
Seems to me like just because you use those words, you would have made it constitutional, eh?
It is constitutional, and it should appeal to conservatives and libertarians.
That's what I mean. I mean, it's constitutional, so I mean, it shouldn't be a hard sell. Why is it a hard
sell?
I'll
give you another one.
Yes.
The preamble to the Constitution and in the text, they talk about to promote the general welfare.
There you go.
Well, basic income will promote the general welfare directly and efficiently, far more efficiently than what current policies do, which is corporate welfare and efforts to create jobs. And in trying to create jobs, policies invariably coerce people into fear of unemployment and fear of starvation and fear of debt.
That word is so important that you've just used, coerced.
Yes.
A lot of our employment right now is coerced.
Yes, that's exactly right.
A lot of the lack of wages right now is the coercion in thinking that you are not going to be employed.
Yes, and it's the distinction between the extreme predatory capitalism that we've had in the last decades, where government supports the big corporations and the very rich, the so-called job creators, and what I'm talking about with basic income, which is a more humane, inclusive, democratic form of capitalism.
Absolutely. I tell you what, Stephen, why don't you give our listeners a closing message and let's get out of here.
All right. The closing message to all of your listeners is that basic income is an idea whose time has come, and the sooner we make it a reality, the better it will be for all of us, for our country, and for our world.
Look, Steven Shafarman, it's been my pleasure.
Yes, indeed.
But you know what? I missed something because I think I interviewed you a few years ago.
Yes, you did.
You had a book then, and I think you have a new book now. So before we go, I want the audience to know how to get that new book, because one of the things that we have to do is not just listen to us here talk, but get a little bit more in depth with all the writings that you have. So give them, actually, let's have both of your books. Let them know how to get both of your books.
I've actually done 5 books on these topics.
You did 5 books on basic income.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been an evolution. I wrote a very academic book about it when I was in graduate school 20 years ago. Then 2 years ago, I self-published a book
That's the one that
called,
we spoke about.
That's the one called Basic Income Imperative. And I've completely rewritten it and made the arguments much clearer and more refined, but I don't yet have the title.
You don't have the title
And I've got a very good publisher, and we're supposed to meet next week or the week after to finalize the title and the publication date.
I hope that I will hear from you so that under this video, whenever you have it, we'll have the link for folks to get your book.
We'll make a point of that.
Steve
this has been
Shafarman,
great
it was
fun.
a pleasure speaking to you, and you have a wonderful day, and
you too.
Enjoy the limited rest of the conference.
Yes, indeed. And politics done right is what we're all making a reality.
Okay, folks, I hope you enjoyed that. That was the first one the first one of the day that we're talking about. But I have a call, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that call, and then I'm going to move on to the next conversation that we have, which is going to be about turning Texas blue. We have somebody out of the middle of Texas who's really done a hell of a lot of work with his team out there, with several teams out there, to really start flipping that part of Texas. But anyhow, come on in. I think this is a Skype call. Come on in. Skype, you're on.
Hello, I'm sorry. I have myself on mute. This is Larry, sir. How are you?
My brother, my gun-touting Second Amendment conservative right-wing brother. How are you doing?
Absolutely, sir. I mean, I didn't hear. I had called into the show. I logged on to the web. I didn't hear anything until just moments ago. So I don't know what was going on.
Yeah, I don't think anybody else.
But I'm glad I'm able to contact you now.
Okay.
But at any rate, I assume you're waiting for your guest to come on. Is that correct?
Well, actually, these are things that I did in Philadelphia. So I have a few minutes that I can entertain whatever you want to what you want to tell the audience.
Oh, good, excellent. Then I would love to speak with you about the New York Times 1619 project.
Oh my God! All right, go ahead.
Now, come on. I know you've got to be enamored of this one, right?
Of course.
I mean, first of all, I'd like your take on it, and then I'll give you mine. But I'm just curious to know, what is your take on the 1619 project? And more importantly, the leaked audio or transcripts and the leaked audio that came out of the meeting of the chief editor, Dean Baquet, with members of his staff. I think that's even more revealing than the 1619 project itself.
Okay, let me ask you to hold 1 second. Let me just tell a few people hello. Welcome aboard, Kathleen. Welcome aboard, Vince Lamb, and welcome aboard, Raynard Blake. These are, and I think Vince and Raynard's at YouTube. Anyhow, let me first tell you that I hadn't dived into the 1619 project in detail, but I know it has to do with the origins of the country and how a lot of the slavery and all of that started out here. I think it is a good thing for us to be educated. Now, what I'd like you to do, however, is to tell me in a couple of minutes or so, because we have to jump to the other tape, but in a couple of minutes, what you think about it. Do you have a problem? What's your problem with it?
No, what you said is what it's ostensibly about. Yeah. Oh, it's ostensibly about those things. And by the way, both of those things are either complete distortions or outright fabrications as to what the premise of the validity of the premise of the 1619 project. That's ostensibly what it's about. What it's actually about is an attempt to ensnare the Trump campaign with the origins of American racism, discrimination, and atrocity. Mm-hmm. That's what it's really about, because the editor said so.
Okay.
He said so. He said that we did a very good work in attempting to frame the Russia collusion narrative. But now we have to shift the focus. Now, not on the op-ed pages, mind you, which of course they have absolute, perfectly legitimate right to do, as the so-called gray lady of the standard bearer of the news. Mm-hmm. Of course they have an absolute right to put their opinion on the op-ed. No, but to focus covering the news with regard to the original sin of the American founding, which, by the way, they have decided to extend back to 1619, when the United States was a British colony, rather than July 4th, 1776, when it actually came into being. But it's really an attempt to envelop the Trump campaign and Donald Trump himself with being one of the with wanting to bring this country back to the time of 1619 and the Virginia colony.
Let me just say this, my friend. Let me just tell you this first of all, okay? If what you're saying is accurate, and I don't have any reason not to believe what you're saying is accurate, if there's a conversation that says we want to tie Donald Trump's current rhetoric and behavior to how our country, not our country, but the colonies were in 1690 and subsequently the country after 1776, I'm all for that.
But see, that's just it. That's not the only thing. It is a dual track agenda. Mm-hmm. But the primary reason is what you just said, and yes, you said fairly accurately.
Right.
The secondary objective is to delegitimate most of the major institutional countries by saying they are all infected, influenced, and created by racism.
Well, Larry, you and I
slavery.
go back several shows now because you've been a constant caller of the show, and I'll be honest with you. You and I share different ideologies, but like I tell people a lot of times, I love talking to other people with ideology, and not only them, I like them, and I like you. And I think you've done a good job in proving to me that you're not a racist. I have something that I want to tell you. I have another call that I got to take. And
I'm a black man, sir.
So let me.
I know what racism is.
No, yeah, I know that. I know that. You told me you were a racist and you've changed. You told me that, and I believe you. Okay. Now here's the thing, my brother. I think there are some remnants that people that have changed. When I changed from being a homophobe, which I was, based on being a Latino, Caribbean, black, all of that gave me that proclivity to be a homophobe. When I got rid of it quickly. But when I got rid of it in the heart, that's when it was difficult. Here's what I want to tell you as a bit of advice, and then we can talk about it on the next show because I'm going to let you go and go to another call. But here's what I want you to contemplate and then come back and talk to me about it. It's more than intellect, right? There is more to intellect on these racial matters that are occurring in this country. And folks like you who have made the initial transition have to do more. And when you have to do more, that is when a lot of the things that people have to do, like the 1619 projects, become irrelevant. But for right now, you have to do more. But Larry, I gotta let you go. Can we talk about this in next show?
Oh, of course we can, sir. Like I said, the one thing that really discomforts me about you is that you're a reasonable man, obviously a rational man, supporting irrational propositions.
We'll talk about that later on, brother, okay?
Okay.
Take care now. You have a good one, sir. All right, let me go to 248. 248, come on in, and then I got to go back to the other interviews. Go ahead, 248.
Hi, Egberto. It's Vince.
Hey, Vince, how you doing, my brother?
I'm doing fine. Vince from Michigan. Yeah, Egberto and I've known each other for years.
For decades, man. Well, it's going to be
for the entire decade.
Yes. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing fine. I'm calling in because I heard your previous caller talking about the New York Times and about how, and I'm watching your expression on delay because I'm watching on YouTube. So you're about 15 seconds behind on YouTube than you are on the phone.
Oh, Oh, I didn't know it was that big. Okay.
Yeah, you are. But, when you talk about the New York Times, it's like, I've ran into that narrative before and how people said they're pandering to their readers. Well, I've got a joke about that I modified for a British show called Yes, Prime Minister. It's about who reads the newspapers. The Washington Post is read by the people who run the country. The New York Times is read by the people who think they ought to run the country. The Wall Street Journal is read by the people who own the country. The Los Angeles Times is read by the people who wouldn't mind running the real country, but they're too busy running the fantasy version, and they wouldn't want to leave Los Angeles anyway. And I'm saying that as an Angelino. The Miami Herald is run by people who run another country but want to get the baseball scores in English. The San Francisco Chronicle is read by people who are opposed to anything that goes on in the country, whoever's running the country, and the National Enquirer is run by people stuck in line at the supermarket. Unfortunately, my wife is from Chicago, and I can't get anything for the Chicago Cubs that fits the narrative other than the Chicago Tribune is read by the people who want the movie reviews and the Cubs scores and the Bears scores, and they really could care less what goes on in the rest of the country.
Vince,
yeah.
I can always expect to get a good laugh out of you, and we're going to have some great laughs. And where are we going? Utah, I believe?
Yeah, where my dad went to high school.
Yeah, so we're going
my
to have a
cousin
whole
still
lot
live there.
of fun when we're stuck in that big house at the mountains in Utah. And who knows, we may actually do a Politics Done Right directly from Utah in a few weeks.
Oh, that would be fun. All right.
Thank you.
I'm going to go.
Thank you,
All
my
right,
brother.
I got to
keep
get going.
the tapes, but I appreciate your call in, my brother. You have a good one, okay?
Same to you. Bye, Hickaberto.
Bye-bye. All right, folks, that was Vince Lamb. That's my Coffee Party USA board member brother. We have a board meeting next month in Utah, and we're going to be meeting there, making some new policies for Coffee Party USA. We are an organization that wants to get people together. We're not trying to take away your ideology. We just want you to talk about it, and not only talk about it, but make sure that we get effective policy that supports us all. And you know what, folks? We've done it, we can do it, and we'll continue to do it. But anyhow, the next conversation I want to have is about turning Texas blue. And I want you to listen to this guy. This guy's a hard worker in the community, a hard worker in the system. So here we go, without further ado. Good morning. It's Friday, the first Politics Done Right of this morning. We had a late start because we had a daily Kos meeting, and you know what? I have some special guests that I'm going to be bringing in later on afterwards, but I want you to meet somebody special. Here it is, John Stafford, a precinct chair in Collin County, Texas. You know the kind of politics we're running in Texas, and guess what? This is in order to turn blue, we're going to have to put some work in. But it's not only that we're going to have to put some work in, we're going to have the people who know how to get the job done. And here with us is the one and only John Stafford. How you doing? I thought you were going to print it on your stuff again because the thing went blank, and I wanted to say precinct chair and all of that. I couldn't see it. Well, and I turned it around to see it, and you don't have it on.
You know, I enjoy coming down to meet you every year at Netroot Station and talking to you for your show.
Now tell me, before you start, I want to know, how are things in your part of Texas? We know how difficult things are.
Okay, Collin County has been historically Republican since the 1968 election. LBJ won with 80% of the vote. Richard Nixon won with 80% of the vote, and it's been solidly red ever since. But last year, Beto won 46% of the vote in our county, which is the highest amount that any Democrat has gotten in our county since that 1964 landslide.
Right.
The problem is, down ballot, we had 5 races that we lost by the margin of down ballot drop-off, which meant that 5 districts were won by Beto.
Wow.
But the down ballot candidates didn't win. And this year, Texas loses straight ticket voting, so it's going to be doubly hard to get those down ballot races moving, because we're going to have to get people to move down ballot the entire way, and not just vote for president and go home. Right.
That is there's a magic to the madness, and now what that means is organizing is more essential than ever. So what are you guys doing in that regards?
Well, we've already started our 2020 coordinated campaign. We are working on finding groups for doing outreach, for doing census. There's a whole bunch of things that need to be put together. We're about to hire our first executive director for our county party.
Paid position?
A paid position.
Okay.
So this is all new and exciting stuff for a growing county party.
Well, I mean, I think that is important because, I mean, as a county that has never voted Democratic or hasn't voted Democratic since the 60s, if you guys do it, I mean, it may be one of the bellwether counties. Harris County used to be one of the bellwether counties in Texas, and we've turned completely blue over the last election cycle. What are your prospects for 2020?
Well, as I tell everybody,
yes,
as Collin County goes, the state of Texas goes. When we flip Collin County and we turn Collin County blue, we turn the state of Texas blue, and we don't look back.
Well, I mean, and again, the real question is, what are the prospects of that happening in 2020?
Well, I know that our presidential race is going to be close.
Right.
Okay. We have an even shot at who our presidential nominee winning the county. Okay, we are going to be the bellwether county and the swingiest state in the United States this year. We are going to take back the House because we are going to win HD 66 and HD 67 because those are the seats.
Let me back up. You mean you were going to take back the state house is what
We're going to take back the state house.
That's 9. We're 9 votes down.
9 votes down, and 2 of those seats, 2 of those House seats that Beto won are in Collin County.
Okay.
Sharon Hirsch is a great candidate in HD 66. She is going to beat Matt Shaheen this year. We have a contested primary in HD 67, and I don't know who is going to emerge from that, but I am excited at all of the candidates that we have running for that race.
Well, that is excellent. I mean, I have hope that Texas, I mean, you realize that if Texas ever goes blue, the country is a different country.
Yes. And I mean, we have concentration camps along our border, and if Texas has a Democratic government, we don't allow that stuff in the state of Texas anymore.
Now, what are the prospects for what you think the prospects are going forward for, let's say, the Senate? We don't have a, well, I don't want to say we don't have a good candidate. We don't have a well-known candidate running for Senate. Now, that's a statewide thing. What are your
I guess that depends on your point of view, because we have MJ Hagar, who came within 3 points of in Texas 31 last year.
Right.
We have former Congressman and gubernatorial nominee Chris Bell running.
Right.
We have Seymour Hernandez making another run.
Right.
And we have, I believe that Senator Royce West is going to announce on Monday.
That's not known yet, but
he's got his announcement. He's got his announcement out for that. So.
Right. And who's the favorite?
My personal favorite
is Hagar.
Right.
Who's the machine's personal favorite?
I don't know, because I know Senator West, and I think that he is a good man.
Right.
But I think that Hagar has more energy and will have a livelier campaign.
2 questions. Who is the most progressive, and who's the one that looks most like Texas?
Well, if that was the case, Seymour Hernandez is going to tell you that she's the most progressive.
Right.
And as a Hispanic female, she certainly looks the most like the state of Texas.
Right.
I just don't know that Seymour Hernandez can raise the kind of money that it's going to take to beat John Cornyn. I have no doubt that MJ Hagar is going to be able to raise the kind of money that it will take to beat John Cornyn. So that's where my personal take on the Senate race is.
Well, John Stafford, it's a pleasure as always at these Netroots to speak to you. Keep doing what you're doing, because what you're doing is very important. Let's bring your county in.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that was John and Stafford. Look, folks, there is a lot to do, and there's a lot of counties around the country, just like his county, where we are making a difference, where we can make a difference. So don't forget, keep engaging, keep a part of the system, and don't ever give up. This other conversation that we're going to have here is with David Reid, a friend of mine as well, Daily Kos writer, what I call an influencer. He runs what we call Black Kos at Daily Kos, the largest progressive website in the country. We had a lot of talk about the current body politic, and I think you'll find it quite interesting. Whenever we talk, it's usually a good thing. So take a listen to this one. Politics Done Right is back again, and who do I see here? David.
Yes, I am here.
David Reid from Daily Kos, and the starter, the beginner, the publisher of Black Kos, right?
Correct.
How long ago did you do that?
So that has been going on since, wow, it's been longer than I thought. So now I think I started in 2003.
Yeah, you see, let me tell you something, folks. That is a time when even at a progressive rag like Daily Kos, you needed to have some specificity, and he brought it to us. David Reid, welcome aboard Politics Done Right. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Scott. Happy to be here.
Let me ask you something, David, and I got to put it out. What's happening in the country? What do we have to get changed, my brother?
So there's a lot of things going on in the country. One of the things, of course, is so there's been divisiveness on social issues and divisiveness on economic issues. So if I could start on the social issues, we have a commander-in-chief that preaches divisiveness, and you would think that people impacted by that would be fighting against it. But one of the things we have going on right now is a movement, abbreviations ADOS, American Descendants of Slaves, that on one hand they have a valid point that African Americans are a distinct ethnic group, but they also have a very divisive way of expressing that. And when I say divisive, let me be specific. They're saying that they've gone anywhere from saying that people like myself who of Jamaican descent are
and
black.
myself of Panamanian descent
Are black, and they've also, so they feel that if we are considered to be black, we would be part of the reparations that should be coming, and that they want to ensure that we that are the true black Americans get a piece of that, and don't get a piece of that, I should say. So they've been very active online, and they've been saying this, and it's just, to my point is, were you guys saying this when, Louis Farrakhan, who very militant, but he's also of Caribbean descent, or Malcolm X of partial Caribbean descent, or Shirley Chisholm, or all these other leaders who've been leading the struggle, I never heard you guys speaking up and saying, don't speak for us, don't fight for us. And now, where is this coming from? So some of it has to do with the politics, some of the people running for office, you sometimes see these kind of tactics. And it really worries me because as progressives, we can't be fighting against someone who's divisive and then pushing divisive politics. So.
No, I want to kind of chime in on ADOS because I've been saying, look, in as much as I've been told all the time, well, you are not ADOS, so you don't understand. I've been doing the progressive thing as being an ally to somebody who feel aggrieved and looking for solutions.
Yes.
My concern about the ADOS movement has little to do with me not getting any part of the pie.
Yes.
My problem with ADOS is that somehow I think it is used not to say we are not from, let's say, the American ethnic group,
yes,
but more sort of an attack,
yes,
for certain things that Caribbean people, Black Latino people, and those folks come over here with some sort of
advantage, or I don't know what it is,
a non-existent advantage.
Yes.
And that is many times what we see as the core of their message. This is ours.
Yes. And if you look historically at people who have been victims of police violence, some of those people have been, black people of Caribbean descent, of African descent. These people are victims of things like police violence. They've been victims of systemic racism when they get here. So this idea that we're somehow seen as different by the larger culture and giving privileges just isn't supported. So that's one thing that has kind of been an undercurrent of some of the discussions here. And then on the economic issues, one of the things that I've been trying to speak up a little bit about is people speak of working class issues, and there's a big and they speak of reaching out to black voters.
Right.
And the largest share of black voters are
working class.
A large share of working class voters are people of color. They're black, Latinos. Working class somehow has been turned into a synonym for white working class when it's not.
Right.
If you're gearing towards the working class, these issues are going to also affect people of color. It's kind of like an implied slight that you're talking about two different groups, and that's something that we really need to recognize as progressives.
Well, what we have to do is let's give an example specifically. When we look at the reason why the Democratic Party would want to have a twice loser as the representative of the party, a twice loser that is of very high age.
Yeah.
When there's competency right below, is because they believe he can win that mythical working class as defined by whom?
Trump.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Which is the wrong tactic. The tactic should be bring on the working class, and if you really brought on the working class, you encapsulate anybody, and those that are ideologically blind, we can't do much about that, can we?
Yeah. So just so I'm clear too, I haven't actually backed a candidate yet.
Right.
But one of the things that I see is just a mistake, because I've been very active. I've done voter outreach, and I've done walk precincts, getting people. I've done get out the vote drives, and there seems to be this focus on the Obama to Trump voters, but there's two other groups of voters that I think people forget about. One were the people who simply stayed home.
Right.
These are people who voted in 2008. They voted in 2012, so they were registered, and they didn't vote in 2016. Some of them, of course, is because there's a massive effort to disenfranchise voters, but some of them just weren't inspired to vote.
Right.
And a large share of those are people of color, and to be more specific, black people. In this state where we're in right now, the number of black voters in this city, very city, Philadelphia, dropped substantially. And that was enough to win the state.
Imagine that, and that the same thing occurred in Michigan.
Yes, exactly.
Same, Michigan,
In
Milwaukee, Iowa.
Yep.
I mean, Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And Wisconsin, yeah.
Yes.
And so that needs to be a focus. And then if you want to reach out to another group of swing voters that doesn't get talked about, these are the people that didn't vote for Trump or Hillary, but they voted.
Right.
They found reasons they didn't like Hillary. Hillary didn't inspire them, right? They still don't like Trump. By voting third party, they expressed that they did not like Trump.
Right.
These are voters that we should be reaching out. Why did we lose them? You can go to a lot of reasons, but there are specific policies that the Clinton wing pushed that, to be honest with us as a progressive, we got to say those aren't progressive values. And we lost those voters. And so those two voter groups, to me, should be the focus before we try to win back the mythical. Some of them maybe, are going to come back, but none of the numbers we need to win. So we need to inspire, and we need to reach out to the people who felt that we abandoned them. And if we get those two groups of voters, and not just for this election, but going forward, we need to be speaking to these voters and pursuing their issues, not just on election day, not just the month before election, but the other, 23 months that are on election month.
Now, David, tell me, you said there were two issues. So that was the social part. What's the other?
The other issue I said was the economic. What I meant was this division on the working class. But just on a positive note about Netroots Nation, it really has been. It still has a ways to go, but when I first came, when it was yearly Kos, I believe. I could literally count all the people of color in one room, and we were in one room at one point, so I could count them. So it has been growing. But one of the things, if I can get back to that kind of division where we say working class when we don't mean people of color, is we need to make sure that panels, for example, if you have a panel on working class issues, you have representatives of people of color. If you have a panel on feminism, you need to make sure that your feminists just aren't college-educated feminists. They're Ivy League types. They're Ivy League types. They're the single mom that's working in the cafe. They're the Latina that's working in a hotel in Las Vegas. Those are also feminist issues that need to be represented. Right. We're doing better at that, but it isn't just at this conference I'm talking about. I'm talking about the larger progressive movement. That doesn't happen enough. You don't see that when they pick people, and I mean they pick people to go represent us on mainstream media sources. Those should be voices that we're bringing forth and saying, no, we want this person to represent our movement.
You just allowed me to segue to one of the reasons why a Politcs Done Right exists. You just said mainstream media is not putting that sort of stuff on. But you know who's putting that sort of stuff up? If you look around Radio Row, there are a few independent media organizations. We are the ones that are going to be left to do that. And absent that, that doesn't change.
Yeah, and it's really important that that we support independent media, that we support people who are doing podcasts that are speaking to this, and we get those voices out. So one good thing about the social media and the internet, yes, we have a lot of this really horrible behavior that's being inspired by people who support the president and by the president himself. But we can also still use this medium to get our message out. And that's something that we need to remember, is that we don't need to just respond to trolls by, saying back ignorant things back to them. We can literally respond to them by putting a link and say, hey, you know what? This independent media source spoke about this issue, and if you want the facts, why don't you look at this and then get back to me?
Exactly right. We had a process called Be the Media. Be the media, and you can be the media by promoting the media. David Reid, it's a pleasure every year that I see you to have you on with me. Thank you so kindly for being here.
Thank you for doing what you're doing, and remember, we have to support the voices we want heard.
Thank you so kindly, David. That was David Reid. We go back a long time as well. Very strong activist all during the Obama campaign. He was one of those folks that hit the pavement, that did a whole lot to bring the votes in, all in 2010, 2012, 2014. I remember going to that to the Netroots 2015, and we sat down and had another long talk. Folks, that's what it takes. We're kind of running low on time, so what I want to do is bring you a DNC agent, another. He's also a writer at Daily Kos, but he is a part of the DNC. We kind of go back and forth a whole lot because you know my thoughts on the many. My many thoughts on portions of the DNC, and so we go back a whole lot on that. But here it is, Chris. Let's talk. Welcome to Politics Done Right. I should call this Politics Done Right, the snippet version. But anyhow, I'm here with Chris, the one and only Chris Reeves. Chris, how you doing today, buddy? Chris is our old-time Daily Kos bolts and what is it?
We run a series on Daily Kos called Nuts and Bolts. It's one of the older, long-running series about basics that you can implement in small campaigns.
Right. Now, but most importantly now, I think you are a part of the
I am a member of the Democratic National Committee. So.
Right. So you're, in effect now, folks, we are in the belly of the beast when we're talking to Chris Reeves. So I told Chris I would ask him a whole lot of difficult questions, and he said he'll answer my difficult questions. But before we get into that, how are you doing?
I'm doing really well.
And then, tell me a little bit about what you see, where the direction that you see the party is going. How do you feel about 2020? I want to hear about how this national guy feels about all of that.
So I feel pretty good about 2020.
Right.
But I always tell people, don't get overconfident. We're going to have to run hard. We're going to have to run hard all the way. But the one thing I really do like about 2020 is we have a large group of candidates, which I think is good for the voters because it gives people something they can like about anybody who's running.
Right.
So it makes for, I think, a very positive voting experience.
Right. Now I'm going to get a little bit more difficult with you. Right now you are currently, I feel, in my opinion, that the party has a bias towards Joe Biden. Is that true or not true?
So I would tell you, although I'm one of those who believes in neutrality in the primary.
Which you,
yes. But it's one where I hope that the party does not have a Biden, a reservation for Biden, some sort of bias for him, because I don't think that that's right for the voters.
Right.
I think that the one thing is that a lot of the media has a bias for Joe Biden because they want familiarity.
Right.
And I don't think that that's very good for our process. As somebody taking off my party hat and talking as a Daily Kos hat,
right.
The Biden as a campaign has been one of the campaigns that I have not been overly impressed with how they have campaigned. I'm neutral. I'm not saying either way. I'm just saying I don't view Vice President Joe Biden as the
formidable candidate.
The formidable candidate that a lot of other people do.
I am glad to hear that, but then again, you are a member of Daily Kos, so you kind of have a broader view.
And for people who remember, I was on the Rules Committee for Senator Sanders in 2016.
Yeah, and not only that, I think you were back in Houston a few years ago. I think that was rules as well, right?
Yeah, that we were working rules in Houston as well on our goal to continue to make the party more representative of the activists within our party.
Now, so bottom line, then you're in the national committee, and as far as you're concerned, the national committee per se, there's no bias towards Joe Biden.
I think one of the great things about the National Committee is that they're elected out of their states every few years. And so in 2016, there was a big number of people who were backers of Senator Sanders, as well as more progressives, who were elected inside the Democratic National Committee. And so those people have come inside the tent, and so now you've got a lot of those progressives, far more progressives than I think we've ever had, who are inside the DNC, who have been working for changes. And you've seen a lot of that in the Unity report, where we made changes to the way our primaries and caucuses are going to work. But you're starting to see some of that fight back about some of the, we've always done things this way.
That is so important.
I think one of the things that you've seen, I was one of the first 18 signers onto the call for an environmental debate.
Right.
And that was pushed by multiple state chairs. People inside the DNC said, hey, we want to take a relook at the debate rules. Let's maybe consider opening this up or doing things differently.
So are we going to have one?
I think that we're going to see a debate about it in San Francisco at the DNC. But even more than, and I've told people, even more than an environmental debate, which I want an environmental debate, I want us to rethink how we're doing debates altogether. We keep looking at debates like a bunch of candidates behind podiums, and they're speaking to a crowd with a moderator. And more people, I think, would be informed if we change the rules a little bit. Right now, the rule is if you're not the DNC, the only thing that you can do is one candidate at a time.
Right.
And I'm saying, having talked to the campaigns, would people be better informed if multiple candidates went on The View? Or if they appeared, if we had candidates, if we had a pair of candidates or three candidates go on Sway in the Morning, or go on Howard Stern, or go on, any program that, if they went on Late Night with Colbert, and we had several candidates at once, who gets hurt in that? Nobody gets hurt in that. So why don't we realize that, the era has changed? We keep debating Lincoln Douglas style from 1860.
Right.
I wouldn't mind a debate where you've got Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren.
Just the two of them. Or
just the two of them on The View talking about a single issue, where the debate is, let's talk about how to make it better.
Right.
I think the country is ready for that. And we got to break out of some of this old school thinking about what is and isn't a debate. And I think that's going to be one of the discussions that we'll have in San Francisco.
When is it?
That's August 22nd through the 26th.
Keep me abreast on what's going on. Now, so in closing, tell me a little bit about where you think we need to go from here. But before, I want to do it in two places. Let's first talk American politics, and then I want you to talk about Daily Kos afterwards.
Okay. So one of the things that I am more concerned, you brought up Vice President Biden. Like I said, I'm going to be neutral, but the one thing that does worry me about that I keep hearing from a lot of communities, especially when we go outreach into minority communities, is there are too many people who believe that, well, the safe choice is, an old white guy, because people are used to voting for an old white guy. And I'm going to tell you, all the data I see, every piece of data that I see, tells me that we need to rethink that notion altogether. We need to stop saying, resigning ourselselves to the idea of qualifications that shouldn't matter. If you're voting for Joe Biden, it should be because you love some issue that he's articulating. If you love Harris, it's because there's something about her that excites you. If you love Bernie, it's something excites you. If you love Warren, it's because you've heard her plan and you say, damn, that's what I want. the only way that we win isn't by playing check a box and saying this is what has always worked.
Right.
The way that we win, an activist once told me Democrats win when somebody turns to me and they say, I would walk across broken glass to go vote for that person.
Guy. Yes.
And they said, with President Obama, which was the largest vote getter we have ever had.
Yes.
Let's remember that.
Nobody has gotten that many
Nobody. There were people in this country who said, I would walk across broken glass to go vote for Barack Obama.
Right.
And who is that candidate? That's really the standard. The standard shouldn't be, let's go chase some white voters somewhere who may or may not be willing to pull the lever because they would be okay with it. Those people won't be excited.
Right.
They're not running to the polls to be like, oh my God, I got to vote for this person or that person. So find me the excitement. If you're excited about a candidate, that's the reason to get behind
I
it.
tell you, Chris, that is one of the reasons I wanted to interview. I think that's important. I think more people from the national community need to speak like that. It's almost like giving the people in the party, the real party ideologues,
Right.
permission to think outside of the box.
Right.
And I think that is so important. You have to think outside of the box. Now, Daily Kos, what do you think about how far we've gone so far?
I think one of the things that I'm, of course, Daily Kos staff, and I've written at Daily Kos for 15 years now. And my department is handling community, which is outreach. One of the things that I have always loved about Daily Kos is we have people every day who come there and advocate for every position. And they are willing to discuss and debate it and have a real exchange of ideas. And I think that someone once told me they were really offended by something that got written and they disagreed and they were angry about it. And I said, have you read through all the comments? If you went through, there was this back and forth, war of words in the comments. People went back and forth. And I said, but you know what I see in that? I see some people who hear something they have never heard before, and I look for somebody who has changed their mind. Because most of the people on Daily Kos are progressive blogs. They're with us on 80% of the issues.
Yes.
They're the easiest people to explain why you may be in a different place, who will at least listen to you. It's not like going to some place where conservatives are going to come in and troll. It's coming to some place where somebody that you agree with 80% of the time disagrees with you, but is willing to listen to what you have to say. And I think that's fantastic. The other thing about it that I love in relation to presidential politics is that we have advocates there of Harris, we have advocates there of Warren, of Bernie, of Castro, of Buttigieg. And all of these people are voicing their excitement. And one of the things I love about that is somebody's going to win the nomination. And one of the problems I felt we had in 2016 was that the people who were Bernie people that I talked to, when Hillary won, they were like, well, they're kind of excited, but there's nobody over there who is like revved up, right?
Absolutely.
And so,
the polls show it.
And so, but even people who back Bernie or back Warren or back Harris or all of those, they look at the other groups who are backing the other candidates. And I've had some of the people I worked with Bernie on who were like, I talked to the Elizabeth Warren people and they are excited. And that enthusiasm is catchy, and it makes it easier to get behind a candidate in the end to say, I know some of my best progressive friends are really excited about this candidate or that candidate, and that's fantastic.
That is wonderful. DailyKos.com, DAILYKOS.com. Chris Reeves, it's always my pleasure to have you on, and thank you very much for all the work that you're doing.
No problem.
This is necessary work.
We got to keep working on it. We cannot let Trump prevail in 2020.
Thank you, my friend.
There you go.
Okay, that is the end of the series today. I barely made it in 3:59, but I have to do my real spill real quickly, folks. Please remember this is a call-in show. Likewise, this is a show that needs your support. please go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright and click on that button to support us at some particular level that you're comfortable with. We do need your support. Anybody who goes ahead and subscribes to Politics Done Right gets to read all my books online. There is, As I See It, Class Warfare, The Only Resort to Right-Wing Doom. I'm currently writing the book, How to Make America Utopia, Take Away the Economy from Those Who Rigged It. I'm on chapter 3. As I write the chapters, I put them online. Actually, I'm chapter 4. Now, for those of you who've been with me for a while, know that I've gone through some health issues, lose weight and be fit. Now I go through and explain how I did it, and over the last several years have gotten my pressure, all that good stuff done. All of these things I'm doing as a method of supporting this project, Politics Done Right, our project to enlighten folks. Please consider going ahead and going to our store as well, store.politicsdoneright.com. Again, that is store.politicsdoneright.com. There you can go ahead and get t-shirts like the one we have there for the squad, and of course the one that we have for women. Women, go ahead. A woman has already won the U.S. presidency. Sadly, she did not occupy the office, and we have a little statement on that. And of course we have caps, and of course we have cups. So please support us any way you can. We do need your support. Please go to politicsdoneright.com and click on one of the buttons to give us support, or you can just go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you know how I end this baby. I am what? Out!
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES, that is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is Politics Done Right.
1, 2, 3.